Today for New Music Monday, we're going to check out the brand new album from Shabazz Palaces, and it's called Lese Majesty, Lese Majesty. It's his new record. If you don't know Shabazz Palaces, you're really missing out on one of the best things in hip hop, and his 2011 record remains one of my favorites. And with this album, I was really hoping for more of that unique blend of hip hop infused with jazz and funk and electronic. It's just really cool. Go check out Black Up. But from the beginning, this is a massive departure from that album, and the most obvious thing is it's just not as aggressive. It really stays a bit more on the mellow and kind of confused side overall, and it becomes background music pretty quickly, which I was very surprised by. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but for those familiar with his other albums, it's definitely a stark departure. I will say that the atmospheric, really unpredictable sound is definitely still present big time on this record. And this album has a far more open and just bigger feel than his previous work. What really becomes obvious quickly is that that last record was purposefully left way in the past. He really wanted to try something completely new on this album. And on some levels, this record does add to that list of records that kind of show where hip-hop music is heading. There's just so many different sounds on this album that it's impossible to classify it into a single genre or even a handful of different genres. It's really diverse. The heavy presence of electronic music is just as obvious as it has been in the past, and it's the way that he and his production team approach every single song that pushes it into experimental, maybe noise if anything else. And while all of that is great, there's one huge catch to everything I just said. The record sounds completely unfinished. Compared to his last album, there's a ton more tracks, and a lot of these clock in at under 2 minutes. They're sort of brief thoughts, maybe even demo versions of the songs that could become. Most of the tracks here are massively lacking in exploration, and they sound incomplete. There's no other way to say it. With the fact that so many of these songs are so short, a lot of them come off as filler, and that's something I never thought he'd be capable of putting on a record. I think maybe the best way to describe the reality of this record is that I just started losing interest. It faded to background music very quickly, and you cannot at all say anything remotely like that for any of his previous work. And adding to that, the lyrics all across this album are lacking in every sense of the word. It's a massive disappointment because we've seen in the past just how great a verse he can drop, and they're just not here overall. Palasier Lazaro set the lyrical bar very high with his EPs and that Black Up album, and any way you slice it, they're just not up to par. It's not that the lyrics are sloppy, it's just they're not as thought-provoking and insightful as it's been before. There are definitely a couple tracks here that are worth hearing, but when you hear how good those songs are, it only highlights how subpar the rest of the album really is. Overall, this album comes off as a set of demos that were really never fleshed out, but could have been great if they were. Or another way of saying that is, it's a great starting point for their next record. And on the Buy It or Borrow It, the new Shabazz Palaces album is a hesitant borrow it. It's not terrible, there's a couple moments worth checking out, but if you've never heard it before, go check out Black Up. It's much more worth your time. So that's what I got for you guys today. I hope you dug it. If you did, go ahead and click subscribe, leave a comment, click like, whatever you want to do. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook right here, and I'll see you guys again next time.